Well, hello there, sailors and starnauts. Welcome to Swords and Starships, the Captain's Cast. I am the captain of this ship of entertainment. And away we go. So I was doing a little homework before I started the stream. You know, I felt I needed to catch up on some stuff. And so I fired up the old Mandalorian. Let me just share this headline. Try this headline. The Mandalorian Season 3 gives Disney Plus another loss. There is blood in the water, folks. The Star Wars brand is failing to live up to expectations with fans with Disney. Ahoy, Tom. I see you in the chat. Oh, Baby Yoda's so cute. Don't you just love Baby Yoda? Interest might just be waning in The Mandalorian, and Baby Yoda, as it is learned in the Season 3 premiere, did not hold up well for Disney+. The episode also happens to be the lowest rated on Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb, which features those goofy space pirates and the Pirate King and Episode 2. I can't read today. And Episode 2 wasn't much better, as not much is going on, and it's just more of the same, featuring more goofy-looking characters. So here's the number. 1.6 million U.S. households watched the Season 3 premiere of The Mandalorian on Disney+. So how does that actually stack up? The data reveals. See, viewership data has been released by Samba TV. I have got to say, I love Samba TV because these companies do not want to be honest about how many people are watching their shows. But people watching through Samba TV are giving data. So The Mandalorian again gets beat out by the Book of Boba Fett, which, save for those 2 Luke Skywalker episodes, is a terrible series. I disagree. I think it was a terrible series, including those 2 Luke Skywalker episodes. I don't even understand. I fully expected at the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian that we would never, ever see Luke Skywalker again in the show. That's like a one-off. That's a one use only. Like, yes, I get, come on, you can't deep fake Luke Skywalker for a whole season. I mean, no, I don't want to go there. I don't want our society to get to the point where we just no longer need actors. And really, George Lucas kind of started that. But the data reveals that the Book of Boba Fett season premiere beat out the Mandalorian season 3 premiere by 2%. So according to data previously released by Samba TV, as the Book of Boba Fett was watched by 1.7 million households, the Mandalorian season 3 came just shy of that number. The Book of Boba Fett season finale released last year in February also happened to crush the Mandalorian season 2 finale by 36%. That's weird. You know, I could have thought Mandalorian was the deal on Disney Plus. I mean, this is their flagship series. It's also learned the Mandalorian season 3 premiere fell short of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series by a whopping 28%. Another not so good series for Lucasfilm. That's putting it kindly. And fell short of Marvel's Loki by 35%. Andor, as it was reported, the Mandalorian season 3 premiere was watched by 50% more households than Andor. So Andor is a complete flop, even though it's actually the only good show, halfway good show that they released. Expand the screen, Tom says. All right, I'm sorry. I have been derelict. What happened? I am sorry, my dear sailors and starnauts. Hang on. I can fix this. Okay. Still learning how to use OBS, I know. Okay, that should be better. Let me see if I can zoom in here. All right, I'm not going to spend too much more time on this one. I just wanted to get this out of the way early. because this is my point. Let me just put it this way. So I turned on Mandalorian episode 2 because I kind of forgot the show existed. I basically watched the first episode. I did my review. It was the worst episode of the series so far. I really stand by that. Until I saw the second. I have not finished the second episode because I had to start this stream. But I got to the part where, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen episode 2, do you care? Bo-Katan rescues the Mandalorian, who once again gets ambushed. You know, this is my problem with Pedro Pascal in The Last of Us. All he does is get ambushed everywhere he goes. The trap has been sprung. If only he were stabbed by some raiders. Yeah, that would have made even more sense for Pedro. So I'm watching this and I realize there's no story. There is no plot to this. He's just, I want to be a Mandalorian again. And everything else is Skyrim side quests. Everything about this show. And can I just say something about Baby Yoda? Okay, I liked this character in the beginning. I stand by that. I get it. I know. Cute baby. I see the strategy. And I was aware of it back then too. Star Wars, Disney Star Wars, loves to dangle, cute aliens in front of us that they can turn into toys and sell and merchandise. So I fully understand what was at work here. But that being said, there was a purpose for the character in the story in the beginning. I'm not going to call him Grogu. I know that's what his name is, but the reason for Baby Yoda being interesting for me was twofold. One, he suggested something about Yoda himself. He actually suggested something interesting about the life cycle of these creatures. He had a purpose in the story in that he was the object of the Imperial remnants. He was part of their evil plan. And there was a classic kind of Western style story of the hero, the hired gun for hire, renounces his contract in order to do the right thing. And that's actually a pretty compelling story. And then, of course, that sort of really just carried on into season 2. They introduced Grand Moff Gideon. And that at least gave us a bad guy to root against, which is important. Now, what we have is a puppet baby that flops around. I can't help it. I laugh every time. Every time he does I guess it's supposed to be a Jedi flip or something where he just launches into the air and he makes a little baby sound when he does it. He goes, "Ee!" And all I can think of, it's like Mini-Me. It's like Mini-Me from Austin Powers. It's not, it doesn't work. He's a puppet. I mean, come on. What? You can't take this character seriously. It was straining the absolute limits of what people could take seriously when Yoda had a huge lightsaber fight with Count Dooku in Attack of the Clones. I mean, let's just be honest, it looked ridiculous. It was ridiculous. And you could tell that the movie was taking itself dead seriously, too, at that moment when Yoda is fighting Count Dooku. Now, I happen to like that scene. I'm willing to put up with a little bit of silliness in the Star Wars universe. There was some dramatic weight to that scene, and it was cool to see Yoda really kick ass. But that was the outer limit of what looks... Okay, you know what? It's even worse? I really did love the Yoda fight in Revenge of the Sith when he fights the Palpatine. That was really cool. And that actually looked less ridiculous, probably because I was sort of used to it after Attack of the Clones. But there is that moment when Yoda throws Palpatine into his office chair. And it totally, every time I watch that movie, it takes me right out of it. I can't do anything but laugh because the image of seeing Emperor Palpatine flopping backwards over his office chair is like something out of Robot Chicken. It's not even remotely dramatically serious. It doesn't even look like it fits in the Star Wars universe. So there's a bit of ridiculousness already. Now you've got Baby Yoda, Grogu, who's basically also a baby doing this stuff. And it's like, why not just animate a human baby doing this? How would that look? Well, see Twilight, for examples. It's dumb, okay? I just it literally the moment in the second episode when Baby Yoda is in this little pram, which, by the way, that's a handy piece of technology, right? That thing can basically just fly anywhere that you need it to. Why doesn't everyone have one of these? Like, why aren't there adult-sized prams that they can just zoom around in? Why do you need a rocket pack when you could just use a larger pram for yourself? It wouldn't look as cool. So we have this whole scene where he's jetting out of the tunnels to try and get help for our imperiled hero, the Mandalorian. And it's literally like a scene in a video game where they just start throwing enemies at you. And it's like, oh, you got to dodge this enemy, and then you got to dodge that enemy, and you got to get around this guy. And then they throw this creature with like wings, this like gargoyle looking creature attacks the, what would you call this thing? Does it have a name? The Mandalorian starfighter, his Naboo starfighter. Like, this creature attacks it. Baby Yoda's already inside. The cockpit is closed. There's not an ounce of peril. There's not even a chance he's in danger. And yet the music is signaling that, he's in danger. Oh no, what'll he do? And then he just flies away because he wasn't in danger at all. So, are we enjoying this show? Are we enjoying The Mandalorian? Anybody? I want to hear someone who's enjoying this show tell me. Tom says, Grogu has no arc in season 3. It definitely would have made more sense for him to stay with Luke. But Disney wants him in the show, even if he's just there for the cutes. It's just blatant now. It really is. Why hide it anymore? They've just gone full they've just gone full Baby Yoda plushie. Tom says, not as much as I want to. Here's the thing. This could work. Baby Yoda could still work as a character. I think it's he did say a couple of words, and it's really, it's almost worse. It's like they should have just started the season, he speaks. Like, literally, he meets the Mandalorian again, and he says something like, the force be with you, and Mando's like, you speak, and then one dumb line of exposition gets that out of the way. And we're like, okay, he can speak now. What made Yoda cool? Yoda used the Force. Yoda, until Attack of the Clones, I guess. Then he pulled out a lightsaber. But before then, we had only ever seen Yoda use his sort of mental, spiritual connection to the Force. And they were kind of tapping into that with Grogu in the first season, because most of the scenes involving Grogu that kind of worked, he was straining to like make something happen, and it was kind of awesome to see him achieve that, because now I realize it's member berries, really. It reminded us of Yoda. But there was some dramatic weight to it. Having him do backflips and jump around, especially when all the rest of the time he's making baby sounds and floating around in the pram, it just doesn't make any sense. So, Mandalorian's not looking good. It's dropping. Okay, this is the last thing I'll say on this, and then we'll move on. That when I was enjoying the first season of Mandalorian, I really liked it because it felt like it was sort of restoring some of the elements of Star Wars that I think really worked. And some friends of mine were like trying to tell me, this Baby Yoda thing, this is dumb. Like, this is absolutely just, they are using this as cuteness. This is excessive cuteness, and they're doing it to manipulate you. And I'm like, ordinarily I would agree with you, but I felt differently for all the reasons I stated. That I felt that there was something interesting about exploring the history of Yoda's species, and then what that might say about his species, and the kind of emotional connection that the child, at that time as he was known, had with the Mandalorian. Those were some good dramatic reasons for the character being part of the plot. All of that is gone now. So what is my point? My point is, yes, if this is what Baby Yoda had been in season 1, it would have been a failure. And that's exactly what it would have been. It would have been cuteness. And this is the problem with Disney. They never learn. They learn the wrong lessons from every single thing that they do. We have the Sony Spider-Man film, for example, right? Where we get 3 different versions of Spider-Man, and it was epic. It was awesome. It was not awesome because they brought in alternative versions of Spider-Man. It was awesome because, number one, the story was really good. There actually was a story arc for the Tom Holland Peter Parker, but also it was building on the fact that there was love, there was genuine affection for the previous Spider-Man characters and the actors that played them. Maybe not as much for Andrew Garfield, but the point is they built a good story around it, and it fit the interest that fans had in seeing those characters. Now what does Disney think? Disney and DC, they all think that this is the answer now. Oh, that's what fans wanted. They wanted multiverses and different versions of all their favorite heroes. That's what they wanted. It's like, no. So this is the problem. I'm going to hate episode 3. Tom says, man, you're going to hate episode 3. Oh, am I going to watch episode 3? Just to have fodder for this show? Maybe. Oh, that's why it screwed up my browser, because I switched screens. That was why. Good looking out, Tom. All right, let's get a new headline in here. I got headlines burning a hole in my pocket. This is sad news, folks. Report. Lucasfilm cancels Disney Plus Willow series that was used... Oh, okay, I did not read this headline. That was used to try to normalize sodomy? John F. Trent is a real... he's kind of an asshole, I gotta be honest with you. John F. Trent, he's definitely one of the more fiery orators on this site. I was more interested in the fact that we just canceled the Willow series. Disney Plus removes... That's going to be fun. I might clip that out and just make that one of my videos. Disney Plus removes MCU Phase 5 release windows, signaling big delays. Look at this. Look at Phase 5. What do we have here? Make sure I got a good view on here. Quantumania, fail. Loki Season 2, Blade. Oh, they're going to ruin that character. They are going to ruin that character. He will never be able to have the level of rated R violence that you need for a Blade movie. Agatha, Coven of Chaos. Captain America, New World Order. Why does that sound so familiar? Captain America, New World Order. I mean, obviously, I know that that's a literary phrase, but I feel like I've heard that somewhere else. Anyway, just... So we got What If Season 2, pass. Echo. Why do they pick the least interesting characters to develop a series? That character was like 0% interesting in the Hawkeye show, which is... Hawkeye is the last Disney Plus Marvel show that I stayed all the way to the end. And that was mostly because Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin was coming back. And boy, be careful what you wish for, because they just ruined his character. Agatha, Coven of Chaos. They have got a bunch of like... They must have a bunch of recent college grad CW writers. No disrespect to the CW. The CW does what it does for the CW. This is where this kind of stuff belongs. What is this? They seem to not understand who likes superheroes and why people like superheroes. What in anyone's experience of that show WandaVision gave anyone the impression that this was an interesting character? She was a mid-antagonist for Wanda. Loki Season 2, which reduced the Infinity Stones to literally paperweights in a junk drawer. Great going there. X-Men 97, don't want to see that. Ironheart. This is what I'm talking about. Tony Stark, descendant of a billionaire inventor, himself a genius, spent the first 50 years of his life ish building technology, graduating at MIT, doing the wrong things in business. And then finally, he has this incredible experience and he builds his own Iron Man suit. It's like his lifetime achievement. That's the whole purpose of the story. Iron Man building an Iron Man suit is like his lifetime achievement. And then they have this character, Ironheart, who, on essentially what amounts to a dare from a teacher, just builds this suit, which looks like crap. And it's like, oh, okay, she built it in her college dorm room. Oh, wow, that's one. I guess that's one way to become a superhero. Just be a college genius and just build an Ironheart suit. And then we have Daredevil Born Again. Oh, Charlie Cox really made a bad call joining this project. So the point of this article is they're pushing out all of these properties, right? They are quietly extending their deadlines because all these things are failing. None of these things are bringing in ratings. Mandalorian isn't working. If Mandalorian isn't working, what's going to work? Nothing's going to work. Excited about Echo Tom? And, are you ready for this? Avengers, the Kang Dynasty team lineup revealed? Every hero rumored for the new Avengers team. Are you ready to see the A-listers that they have scheduled for us for Avengers, the Kang Dynasty? Seemingly confirmed heroes, and I believe this came from a leak. So, or was this, okay, yeah. Based on the multiple interviews of Avengers, the Kang Dynasty writer Jeff Loveness and the scoop of industry insider Grace Randolph, stating director Destin Daniel Cretton's demands for the film. The following heroes are reportedly said to assemble as the new Avengers. Spider-Man, solid choice. And as it points out in this article, he's probably going to be leading the team. But who else we got? Who else? Shang-Chi? Awesome. Played by a stock photo model. The new Captain America. Steve Rogers is Captain America. Sorry. Which, by the way, he has no superhuman abilities, so yeah. He's probably the second strongest of this lineup that they have. And that's not saying much. Captain Marvel. Why do you need a team if you have Captain Marvel? She can just destroy Thanos' whole ship with one shot. So I'm so excited for this. I want to see her leading the team. Moon Knight. Another really disappointing show. That there was such potential in a character like this. And he could have been dark. He could have been gritty. Daredevil. Now, this breaks my heart a little bit because that would be cool. You know, that Defenders show on Netflix, I was so excited for that. And it was basically, yeah, it was Daredevil, Iron Fist, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage all teaming up together. And it was mostly pretty cool. I think my problem with that was I just thought the ninja bad guys were dumb. They had all these magical abilities, and it just... there's something that just takes me out of it. It's like, I'd rather have seen the four of them taking on Kingpin. You know, Kingpin has unleashed a new crime wave in the city. That would have been cool. Why do they always have to make it magic all the time? So, but I was excited. It was fun to see the four of them interact. And now he's just going to be the next, just dumb quips, dumb Marvel humor. Oh, and then we have the new Black Panther. Please get this girl a sandwich. Somebody. I'm worried. And then we have... who is this character again? This is the new Scarlet Witch, I think. Or no. No, not Scarlet Witch. This is the new Black Widow. And Namor. And She-Hulk. Ant-Man, of course. Yeah, that's like the one OG. Hawkeye maybe is back. Wong is the most over-elevated supporting character in all of the MCU. How to build a cinematic universe. I just saw this pop up in the feed. Marvel needs to watch this video. See if it helps them. This is your lineup. You know, what they did to the Black Panther character in Wakanda Forever is an absolute travesty. It's an absolute travesty. There is no other character they would not have recast. That's the only character that they would have ever done that. It's such a bizarre situation. Because as so many have pointed out, you know, imagine if after Christopher Reeve's accident, they had announced Superman is dead. There's no more Superman. Like, we can't have Superman because the actor who played Superman passed away. It's like, how is that honoring Chadwick Boseman? I feel like that is a complete insult to Chadwick Boseman. And so, once again, this is who we have as our lineup. And on top of all of that, so we have failing Mandalorian. We have pushing back all of our release dates for these Marvel properties. And the most anticipated Marvel film, I believe, since Avengers Endgame is absolutely the Marvels. And according to this rumor, the Marvels' latest delay is the result of Brie Larson's diva behavior. It's just a shit show, folks. In the same way that her self-important public persona wrecked any hopes of Captain Marvel ever becoming one of the Marvel Cinematic Universe most genuinely beloved characters, it seems Brie Larson's dissatisfaction with being demoted from her franchise's leading lady to one of its many ensemble members is proving disastrous for the Marvel's production. This is from Miss Marvel, by the way. That's a great picture. I'll bet that's how she looked. That's probably her resting face. That's my guess. That's probably how she looks. She shows up on set in the morning. That's like before the lights, camera, action. More than perhaps any other MCU effort thus far, the Marvels has had, to say the least, a rough time taking off. In addition to the aforementioned mid-production shift from a Carol Danvers solo sequel to a Marvel family adventure, the film has also suffered 4 total release delays, with its original July 28, 2023 premiere having ultimately been pushed back to its current date of November 10th, 2023. Release it, you cowards. Release it. Let us see it. Check out this poster, though. Let me get this in. There you go. I want to get this in frame here. There's your poster for the Marvels. The interesting thing about this poster, it's something of a Rorschach inkblot test. And that's all I'm going to say. Just look at it for a while. That's all I'm saying. And while 3 of these delays were the result of Marvel's panicked rescheduling of its future phases in response to audiences' lackluster reception to Phase 4, you mean Stage 4, the latest was apparently caused by Larson's refusal to work with her co-star Monica Photon Rambeau, actress Teyonah Parris. Speaking to the topic during the March 9th episode of his and film critic John Rocha's The Hot Mic podcast, noted film reporter Jeff Snyder informed his co-host that in terms of the Marvel's production, I've heard that it's just a shit show. I've heard it's kind of chaos. And really, I don't think this will really surprise anybody who's plugged into the industry. I've heard, again, don't get mad at me, I've heard Brie is a nightmare. I don't think I'm the first person to say that. I've heard she really clashed with Teyonah Parris. It has led to some strife, and that is sort of behind the delays. She must be an absolute delight to work for. Don't you just imagine? There's that great clip of her on the red carpet, and they're asking her, are you excited to be Miss Marvel? And she's like, I don't know. Does anyone want me to be? Anyone want me to do that again? I don't know. Does anyone want that? Bitter much? And yeah, as Tom asks, do you think they should have just recast the same character for Black Panther? Absolutely. They should have found a new actor to play T'Challa, and it should have just been a total recast. Because if Tom Holland dies, you will recast Spider-Man. You know, if and frankly, I don't like this idea of handing. I know that in the comic books, Captain America handed the mantle off to Bucky Barnes actually at some point. But the point is that that was only ever a temporary transfer. I mean, the reality is I don't like this idea of transferring the identity of a superhero to another actual character. Like Lady Thor. I started watching Thor Love and Thunder. I still had never seen it. I started watching it just out of morbid curiosity. And I know the whole plot because I've seen all the reviews and breakdowns. But I start watching it, and there were a couple of moments with Christian Bale in the beginning. I'm like, oh, this, his performance is pretty good. And I'm like, oh my God, this is bad. It's like the god he runs into is an absolute mustache twirling villain. But anyway, when we get to actual Thor with the Guardians of the Galaxy, we get this mind-numbing action scene right off the bat where the actors don't it's like they're not even really there, and they know they're not really there, right? They know that they're not really in a battle. They're just in front of a green screen, and they're all just talking to each other, and like, blasts are flying past them, and nobody's trying to duck or take cover. Nobody's worried about anything. And there's this long conversation with some aliens and Thor, and there's a bunch of like funny quips, and it's just like watching paint dry. And I turned it off. But my point is, passing the torch from Thor to Jane Foster made no sense at all. Thor is Thor. Literally, that's his name. So no, I'm not in favor of making Black Panther a different character. I'm not saying that within the lore you can't, because obviously his father before him was Black Panther. But the point is, we got one movie. We got one movie with this character, and then you just killed him off. And let's face it, she has none of the physicality. She has none of the charisma. She's a supporting character. She's not a leading character. And frankly, Black Panther is a male character, and he should remain a male character. Totally cool with female characters. Black Panther's not a female character. He just isn't. Who was that at the bottom of the Marvels poster? Okay. So the Marvels, that's Miss Marvel. So that is from your teenage show which is basically a kid show. It's basically like an old Disney Channel show on Disney Plus. So that's Miss Marvel. And then we have Monica Rambeau. And I don't really even understand this character. I don't really care. I really don't care. Are you interested to see what MODOK could have looked like in the hands of a talented creative team? Before I show you that, let me show you this. So one of the actors in Ant-Man Quantumania thinks that Jeff Loveness was a great choice to write the Avengers script. Jeff Loveness. Main credits include Jimmy Kimmel Live and the Oscars. And he had this to say: it's such a smart choice, bringing Jeff Loveness on board to help craft this world and these stories, because A, he has written and understands comic books more than any other comic book screenwriter out there. I mean, he's actually been in the trenches for a long time. He is so smart. He sees all the moving pieces at one time, and his brain is this fascinating place. Well, it didn't work. It did not work out. He's got what I would describe as like a beautiful mind. He's this very sweet, loving, very funny guy. All that may be true. That has nothing to do with whether he has any talent. But his brain is like, if he wasn't writing movies, maybe he'd be inventing, doing something with atomic energy. That I doubt. I don't know. And all that combines into this deep love and passion for the characters when he talks about them. Deep love and passion. You see, I understand. If you know this guy personally, this is what I don't get, right? If this guy really is like this, if he really does care about these comic book characters so much, then why did he write that garbage? I just don't understand. MODOK was not in it. You did not love that character if that was your idea of MODOK. Now, this reinforces my theory that the writers on these projects, they are no longer talent. They are now fall guys. They are there to take the fall when everything hits the fan. They are there to be the face of the project. They're not there to actually be the creatives that are developing the project. So this is a concept art of what MODOK could have looked like in the movie. This is how he looked in the movie. Okay. Take that in. Now here is, let me find this. Okay, so here is an artist concept of what he could look like. Make sure I get that centered. There you go. Now that's pretty cool. This was doable. This was doable. And notice how this artist has even taken into account Marvel, the Disney Marvel's tendency to want to like add a lot of bells and whistles, make things look a little more modern, cool. This actually does that. They toned down the brightness of the colors a little bit, gave him some more techie looking stuff. They give him this kind of like gargoyle, like predator, vulture kind of look, which I like. And his face, and this is the important part, his face looks distinctly not human. I love the eyes the artist did. That is super cool. Like, look at that. That is the stuff of nightmares, is it not? Yeah, well, I didn't have to zoom in because there you have it. Now, pair this visual with a character that was malevolent, violent, and actually dangerous and posed an actual threat to the characters. And you could have had something approaching an interesting antagonist for the film. What we got in the film was nothing even remotely close to that. So, you know, to Mr. What's this guy's name that was talking about his buddy? His buddy. It was, name of the actor was, trying to find it here. Probably doesn't really matter. He's kind of a small, that's right. Dastmalchian. I have no idea how to pronounce that. But I actually saw this guy on Film Threat. And he did an interview with Chris Gore, and it was a really great interview. And he seems like a really cool guy, and he's very much a comic book nerd. This actor. But the problem is, he's completely wrong about this. And this is what I don't understand. Either he's right about his friend, and something went wrong, or he's wrong about his friend. And I will say this. If he's right, then that means that whatever creative vision Jeff Loveness had for this film, it was nowhere close. Like, he had basically he got noted to death. He had no real input in the creative direction of the story because it was absolute garbage. But I tend to think this is a bunch of bullshit. I really do. Because it is inconceivable to me that if you were a huge fan of comic books and you just loved all these characters, that what you would produce is this shit. Sorry, I just don't buy it. Tom said, haven't seen Quantumania, but what do you think about its Rotten Tomatoes score? Critic 47, audience 83. That is a weird one. That is bizarre, because usually the critics are like, oh, it's 87%. You know, I'll tell you what. I think it's because Paul Rudd is a straight white male, so it's pretty safe to say you don't like this movie. It's a little bit safe. I feel like the waters are finally getting warm for the critics, to be honest. A little bit. They can say, oh, it wasn't their best effort. Let's just face it. Every film since Endgame, with the exception of the Sony film, Spider-Man Far From Home, the exception of that film, every single Marvel film has been shit. Every single one. Um, Eternals, Shang-Chi, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, Black Widow, every single one of them. And it's only now that the critics are starting to be honest. Audience score of 83. I doubt that score. I feel, you know what I think is happening? I think that Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, these sites are starting to catch on that fans, it's like the Jeff Goldblum speech in Jurassic Park, life finds a way. Fan reaction finds a way, right? And so what they've done is they've turned off comments on YouTube. They've removed the dislike number, so you can't see the dislike number anymore. They keep, it's like whack-a-mole. They keep finding ways to shut the fans up because they need us to shut up because they don't want the how people actually feel about the garbage they're producing to be heard. They don't want fans to be able to say what they actually think. And one of their best tools that they love the most is to trot out the media and say, oh, it's a bunch of toxic fans, a bunch of toxic masculine man babies and racists and all that stuff. And so that's one of their favorite weapons. But even that is starting to wear off a little bit because people are starting to get, I know, I'm a racist. But really, I just hate this movie. People don't even care anymore when they get called that. So the last kind of resort of fans has been, aside from voting with their dollars, which that they will always have in their arsenal, they have been going on sites like Rotten Tomatoes and giving them their honest feedback. And what I think is happening is these companies are starting to reverse review bomb. They're starting to, I think they're deleting negative scores. I definitely know IMDb does this because Amazon owns IMDb and they did that for Rings of Power. And there's great videos on YouTube kind of showing this, how they do this trick. And then I think they go and they get bots to put in positive scores. Let's just take a stroll, shall we? Let's take a stroll over to Rotten Tomatoes and see what we see. I want to see if I can find an example of what I'm talking about. Sometimes you see this on these film scores where there will be reviews, but they're oddly non-specific. Like they're basically a review that could apply to any movie. How do you spell Quantumania? Never even occurred to me to try. Never occurred to me to try. That is a weird split, but I want to see some of these reactions here. Audience reviews. Okay. So let's just look at all audience. Can they filter? Just want to see some of these 2 stars. Or no, I'm not looking for the low stars. I'm looking for the high stars. Oh man, this movie is overhated by the critics, the fans. Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror proved that he can easily beat iconic Marvel villains like Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin. Oh, God, really? Really? Alfred Molina's Dr. Octopus and Josh Brolin's Thanos. In my opinion, the best villain portrayal in cinema. No way. You really think this? Newcomer Catherine Newton as Cassie Lang does an outstanding job, too. She did an outstanding job being an annoying teenager who's given way... The film treats her as she's a snarky teenager who is lecturing her parents, her parent who actually helped save the world, on everything he's doing wrong in life. Okay. All right. Visually stunning movie that gets snowed under by theaters unjustly. I am curious about the reasons for liking it. I want to hear people defend this film. I really do. Visually stunning movie. No, it isn't. It's the, you know what it's like? It's like when you wake up, in the middle of the night and you've got a really bad flu and you're having weird dreams and it's like a bad trip and you just want out of it. It's a funhouse mirror of nauseating visuals to me. And the color palette doesn't even look good in this film. Go watch Avatar: Way of Water and then go watch Quantum Mania and tell me that this is a visually stunning film. No. I it was pretty good. I was pretty bored with the last couple Marvel installments, but I felt this movie brought back some of the magic. Basically, if you like Marvel movies, you'll like this too. See, now this is interesting. This is a blue pill right here. This is someone who's plugged into the Matrix and they're sensing something's not right with the world. They're sensing something's off, but they can't put their finger on it, right? This guy is ready to meet Morpheus, in my opinion, because what he's saying here is, I was pretty bored with the last couple Marvel and I don't know, they just weren't as good. This one brought back some of the magic. So he gives it 4 stars. He knows deep down something's this isn't good. He knows deep down that this isn't what he remembers when he went to see Avengers. When he saw the first Avengers, when he saw the, Infinity War, when he watched Captain America Winter Soldier or Captain America Civil War, he felt magic. And the magic was not the visuals. It was not the characters. It was the storytelling. And see, he can't put his finger on it, but the magic was that he cared about the story and the characters, and he was invested. And he was invested in what they were carefully building from movie to movie. Then he watched, probably, Eternals, Shang-Chi, Multiverse of Madness, and there were so much pretty colors, and there were so many characters he remembers that he had fond memories of. But it wasn't a good story, and he couldn't put his finger on why it wasn't working, but it wasn't. Then he goes and sees this movie, and it's not quite as, and I've said this in my review, it's not quite as shit as some of the other stuff in Phase 4. It's not quite as shit as, it's not as badly written as Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, and it's not as badly written as, the Eternals. But it's awful. So he probably felt from rock bottom, he got that little bump, up to the next level. And so he's like, yeah, it brought back some of the magic. If you like Marvel movies, you'll like this movie too. What he's saying is, if you like current Marvel, you will enjoy current Marvel. And that's the problem. Current Marvel is wearing the mask. It is an imposter. Current Marvel is wearing the mask of the careful, incremental, brilliantly done craftsmanship of the first 3 phases. And the quality did start to slip in Phase 3. The seeds of what we are reaping now were planted in Phase 3. And this is a blue pill who feels it, but he can't see it. And that's what's going on there. Yeah, this movie was not fun. I like Kang. It was kind of boring, not my type of movie. This one I agree with. Incredibly silly and foolish. At times painful to watch. Worst Marvel movie ever. I don't actually... No, I take it back. I don't agree with that. I don't think it was the worst Marvel movie ever. What was the worst? Multiverse of Madness. I actually think Wakanda Forever is the worst Marvel film ever made. And I haven't even seen it. I know how that sounds. But let me explain. I will never watch that movie. I don't want to see a movie that is a funeral for an actual live actor. It's morally disgusting to me. It is morally disgusting to me that they did not recast that character, because it says that for some reason Chadwick Boseman was not worthy of that. And they didn't, I don't believe for a second that they asked his opinion about this, because if they had, I know, there's already evidence that he supported the idea of recasting the character, but I guarantee that, well, obviously I can't guarantee, but I highly suspect that Chadwick Boseman would have wanted this character to continue. Just like the actor who died in the middle of filming Spartacus. He wanted that story to be told. They were considering canceling the show Spartacus, which is an epic, excellent show, by the way. Excellent show. It's one of the best TV shows. It's probably in my top 10 favorite TV shows of all time. But the actor died right in the middle of it, and he was a great actor. And the actor himself said he wanted the story to be concluded. And so they recast, and they did a new actor. And he wasn't quite as good, but he was close. He had his own advantages that he brought to the story. But the point is, that's what I think would have honored Chadwick Boseman. And I think also the purpose of these films is not to have a funeral. The purpose of these films is to celebrate life. And that is what it should have been. It should have been a continuation of the story, which would have been a celebration. It would have been a celebration of the torch that Chadwick had passed before he tragically died far too young. So I don't feel the need to sit in front of a movie theater and experience a corporate cash grab over the grave of an actor that I quite admired and a character that I also quite loved. And secondarily, I do not relish the idea of watching a minor supporting character who does not have the physicality, charisma, or performance to take on that mantle, and also is the wrong gender for that character. Not to be a hero, the wrong gender for that character. I have no interest in seeing that happen. I don't want to be depressed for 2.5+ hours. So in my view, Wakanda Forever, without even seeing it, it's the worst film in the MCU. It's disrespectful. It was frankly morally repugnant to me. So oh, here we go. I found one. Sailors and Starnuts. I found it. This is what I'm talking about. Look at this 5-star review right here, March 16th, 2023. I give you Exhibit A. Good. Loved it very much. Now, that is a copy-paste review you can put on literally any movie ever. And this isn't one of the worst offenders. There are some other Marvel movies and other, popular shill movies where the critics were coming out in force that have had tons of these. This one doesn't seem to have as many of these, but that's what I'm talking about. You get these. I liked it better than the first two. It had portions that were otherworldly like Avatar, so that one seems legit. Here's another one, 5 stars. This movie was fun. I don't understand all the hate. It was one of the best movies of the new phase so far. That could apply to any Marvel movie. See what I'm saying? Bot farm. That's what I'm saying. I think they copy paste these things. I need to recenter this. So there you have it, my dear sailors and star nuts. It is bad news for Disney Marvel, and it's not coming back. I really don't think it's... There is an interesting piece of news, though. There is a film that is coming out in April that looks to be on its way to making $1 billion. Some are predicting. I don't know if I would agree. Super Mario Brothers movie. Right here. Let me fix this screen. Super Mario Brothers movie to score at least 85 million to 90 million plus 5 day, but is bound to mushroom early box office outlook. Very clever turn of phrase there. Best opening ever for an Easter weekend movie over 3 days was 2016's Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice at $181 million. At the end of February, it was announced that the Super Mario Brothers movie would open earlier on Wednesday, April 5th instead of Good Friday. see, it did not go. Hmm, I'm looking for the raw numbers here. Nintendo's The Super Mario Bros. Movie just landed on tracking this morning ahead of its Easter weekend release, and the animated film is shaping up to make at least $85 million to $90 million over its Wednesday through Sunday launch. So there are some who are predicting this movie is going to be the first billion-dollar animated film. I believe first. I don't if it hits a billion. Here's the thing, I would not have thought that this movie had a shot at numbers like that. But when I actually watched the trailer, I have to admit, and I'm not like super into this, I'm not Super Mario Brothers. It's not the thing I've been waiting my whole life to see in theaters. I'm more of a Spider-Man guy, okay? Also, it's a bizarre story. Like, is it a story? It's bizarre. It's like he's in the Mushroom Kingdom. But you know what's funny is if you could play it like just a straight up, fantasy universe and just put Mario in it and, scale the story to the kind of general bananas nature that is the Super Mario universe, it could work, right? And so I watched this trailer, the most recent one, and I have got to tell you, it was charming as hell. And it was like they incorporate all the little characters that you meet in the different games, like Mario Galaxy and everything. And there's just something like, because all these Pixar movies and DreamWorks movies, they all sort of manipulate you a little bit with the cuteness, the little cute characters with the fun, cute voices. But I swear to God, they're taking it to another level with this Mario thing, because I forget what they're called. They're the little star things that are following you around in Mario Galaxy. They have this scene where Luigi is in a prison, and he's in Bowser's prison and he's swinging from a cage, and one of these little stars is in the neighboring cage, and he's got like this adorable voice, and he's like, "There's no way out of here. There's nothing to do but wait for death." And it's like, and I'm thinking, okay, this is kind of winning me over. And it's not because it's cute, it's because there's something about it that really fits the world. It's like they've captured some of the magic of the games and they are putting a story to it. And I'm watching this trailer and it's looking pretty good. The animation is really bright and it's very colorful. It's very, you know what it is? It's happy. That's what it is. It's happy. This movie, when you see every trailer of this movie, I feel a rising sense of kind of happiness as I'm watching it. Not because I'm super into Mario, but because it just generally is, it's just pleasing somehow. I don't know how they're doing it. It's probably an algorithm and they've hacked my brain. I don't know what it is. But I have a feeling that Nintendo has poured their heart and soul into making this a good story. I just have a hunch. Something about this tells me that unlike Disney, unlike DC and Marvel and all these failing corporations that are just, they really are just putting everything through the algorithm meat grinder, I feel like Nintendo is building this the way that the early MCU built its story, with careful craftsmanship, and they want this to succeed. You can feel it. You can feel the energy when you're watching this trailer. They want this film to succeed. They want it to be well received. They want all their fans to be happy. They are not writing off half of their fans as a bunch of toxic this or that. They want actual Nintendo fans of all walks of life to love this movie and see it 5 times. And that is the energy that I get when I watch this trailer. So I have no idea if it'll be, I don't know how you tell a good story with Mario. I don't know how you do it. And there is one red flag. There is one red flag. And that is Mario is not rescuing the princess. He is rescuing Luigi with the princess's help. Now that can work. It might, Puss in Boots, the way he plays off of Kitty Softpaws was brilliant in Puss in Boots the Last. I almost said Puss in Boots. We wouldn't want that. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Him and Kitty Softpaws make an excellent team, and it's very fun. If that's the kind of energy they have with Mario and Princess Peach, I think it will work well. But, you know, it's 2023. We can't have males rescuing females ever again, ever. It just can't happen. We can have the Mandalorian get stuck in a trap and Bo-Katan come and save him. He's essentially rescued also by a baby. So we can have men who are excellent at what they do having to be rescued by babies. That we can have, but we can't have Mario rescuing Peach. It's just not the world we live in anymore. I've accepted it. I have been re-educated, and I have embraced the new world order. So how do you write a story with Mario that is compelling, that actually gets you invested, the way that Puss in Boots was able to write a compelling story that got me invested in a fictional cat that has a sword? They did it. They got me invested in a little dog called Perito in that movie. I loved Perito. He was just one of the coolest parts of Puss in Boots. So if my cold, steely heart can warm up to Puss in Boots, I believe it can work with Super Mario Brothers. I have no earthly idea how you would do it. I don't understand how they will do it, but I got a feeling that they're giving it their best, and I am excited to see it. I will see this movie. I'm curious. Believe me, I've got my only prediction is that Nintendo's giving it a really game effort. Not that it will succeed, but if they pulled it off, and if they made this film as charming as it looks, I think it could do $1 billion. I think this movie is going to absolutely clean house. I think it is going to humiliate. You know, think of this for a second. Disney has access to the most incredible. Bob himself said, we have access to thousands of characters in Marvel and Star Wars. We have access to all of these great stories. We could tell any story. And what do? They go digging up all their old animated films and remaking them in terrible live action versions. Every single one. The Little Mermaid. You know, you go watch Avatar: The Way of Water and then watch the trailer for The Little Mermaid and you'll see how big a fail that movie is, because it looks awful. So they can't even make new things. Disney can't make anything new. They can't even make a new animated film that succeeds anymore. Everything is this copy-pasted CGI. Compare that to Nintendo. Nintendo is taking their most beloved property and they are creating a totally new take on it. And they are lovingly adapting all the little pieces of their different games that were popular, that people liked. They're adapting those pieces and weaving them into this story and into this world. And you can tell that their goal here is to make the audience happy. There's a great conversation in Deep Space Nine between the character Garrick, who is a surly, cynical Cardassian spy, and the character Quark, who is a money-grubbing alien Ferengi, and they are talking about the human drink root beer. And I love this conversation because Quark, forgive me if you're not a Star Trek nerd, just indulge me for a minute, all right? I promise I won't go too long. Quark says, I want you to try a drink for me. He says to the surly, cynical spy Garrick, he says, I want you to try this drink for me. He's like, oh, what is it? He says, it's called root beer. He's like, root beer? What the hell is that? He's like, it's a human drink. So he pours it. He said, just indulge me. So Garrick takes a drink of it. He's like, oh, it's vile. And Quark says, I know, right? It's so bubbly and so happy. And Garrick looks at him and says, just like the Federation. And Quark says, exactly. You know what the really scary thing is? If you keep drinking it for long enough, you start to like it. I just love that conversation. This is my point. You look at Super Mario Brothers, and it's so bubbly. It's so happy. It's so effervescent. I have not seen an animated film that looked quite this pleasing in a long time. And I get the feeling that if that is their goal, they're going to succeed. And it is going to be a barn burner. I am certain of that. What's DC doing these days, huh? Tom says, I agree. Super Mario trailer was fun. Made me interested. You know, look, do I enjoy... Do, oh, that's terrible. Do I enjoy the trailer? Do I enjoy the concept of it? Yes, I do. Am I really that interested in seeing a Mario movie? Honestly, no. It's not my thing. To me, it's a fun video game, but like, does that a story make? I don't know. I don't know how you turn that into something compelling because it's so silly. It's just so silly on the face of it. But that being said, I am curious. I am curious if this film can have the effect of being really fun and turning me around on this, because I never would have saw Puss in Boots. I never would have seen that movie, but I kept hearing people recommend it, and I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And I loved it. I loved it. So I'm curious to see if I go and see, I want to see if this movie's successful, but I'm even a little bit more curious to see if it can worm its way into my cold, dead heart. So you enjoy that root beer, Tom. Enjoy that root beer. Try this headline. First synopsis for Superman Legacy, directed by James Gunn, released, and it brings back truth, justice, and the American way. Now, this is intriguing to me. I have no idea what James Gunn's plan is for the DC universe, but, you know, for years, Marvel was the top dog. For years, there was nothing DC could... Everything DC touched turned to crap. After Nolan, that is. After Christopher Nolan, everything turned to crap. And Marvel could do no wrong. You know, it was like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, Infinity Stones. Oh, there was nothing you could do to stop them. My, how the tables have turned. Because DC has a real shot now with James Gunn kind of retooling everything. You know, I think they're finally starting to work smart over there at DC. Maybe. If James Gunn is serious about this, if he really, truly leans into this, they've got a shot to absolutely humiliate Marvel. And obviously, that's not the goal. The goal is not to humiliate anybody, but my point is it will put them to shame because it was Marvel, it was their industry to lose. So this is what James Gunn was saying about his upcoming Superman Legacy. It has been a long road to this point. I was offered Superman years ago. I initially said no because I didn't have a way in that felt unique and fun and emotional, that gave Superman the dignity he deserved. Then a little bit less than a year ago, I saw my way in many ways centering around Superman's heritage, how both his aristocratic Kryptonian parents and his Kansas farmer parents inform who he is and his choices he makes. Assuming this is not, he's not being overly political in his thinking with this, I like this idea of the aristocratic Kryptonian compared to farmer parents. I think that is a super interesting way to look at it. So I chose to finally take on writing the script, but I was hesitant to direct despite the constant pestering by Peter Safran and others to commit. Sorry, Peter. Where is, I want to find his quote about truth, justice, and the American ways. And the American way. Oh, that's right. So that was basically an official synopsis from Superman Legacy, and here's the relevant quote. The synopsis as follows: brings back the tried and true motto Superman is renowned for. Superman Legacy, this is quoting from the synopsis. Superman Legacy tells the story of Superman's journey to reconcile his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing as Clark Kent of Smallville, Kansas. He is the embodiment of truth, justice, and the American way, guided by human kindness in a world that sees kindness as old-fashioned. If they are serious about this, this is going to be a great film. Firing Henry Cavill was a big mistake. A big mistake. But there's potential here. There is absolute potential. And, you know, I'm a big fan. You know, truth, justice, and the American way. And we're speaking here of the American way, not necessarily how America as a political polity has always behaved. But the American way, which I would define as the founding principles of this country, are hand in hand with truth and justice. So it is fitting to restore that to its pride of place. Fu Man Blue is in the chat. Oh, don't worry about it. He says, damn, sorry I missed you. Don't worry at all. Glad to have you here. Welcome in. Captain Garrett is just keeping the lights on. Keeping the lights on for the fandom, you know? So, you know, I explained in one of my previous live streams, you know, not that it's super germane, but I said I'm a libertarian, which is true. But really what I consider myself to be is an Americanist. And that means if you want to know what I believe, if you want to know what my beliefs are about how society should be arranged, how human beings should relate to one another, it's all right there in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, Bill of Rights. Just read that. I just believe that describes what I believe. So there you have it, which is why I love the idea of truth, justice, and the American way. You know, we used to believe in each other as a society. I feel like I need some patriotic music here. So this is, you know, I'm tempted to be cynical and just say James Gunn is, you know, there is a shit show in the offing. Okay. He makes some really bad moves on Twitter with the fans and firing Henry Cavill, but then saying he wants Ben Affleck to direct, and then keeping Shazam, but saying we're going in a different direction. And just, there's so much confusion. And the most annoying thing to me is that they won't fire Ezra Miller, who is literally a burglar, possibly a kidnapper, a cult leader. He's committed multiple assaults. I mean, but Gina Carano, why do I always say Carano? Gina Carano puts Beep Bop Boop in her profile and she gets fired. She does a World War II meme and she gets fired. Ezra Miller goes on a reign of terror across the whole country, and he's working on himself. He's working on himself. We're proud of the progress he's making. Wow. How do I get that deal? How do you get that deal where it's like, I attacked a woman in Hawaii with a chair, but I'm in rehab? It's like, oh, well, okay. Then you don't have to go to jail and you can keep your hundreds of millions of dollar deal. Okay, not hundreds, but you know, you get what I'm saying. Tens of millions. How much is he getting paid? It's probably not that much. So that's super annoying. So there's weird choices going on with the DC situation. And, you know, CBR won't let... Tom suggested, and the audience is always the genius in the room, that I should install an ad blocker. And look, this is the wages of an ad blocker, Tom. Now what shall I do? I was going to read this headline. You know what? It's not even that interesting anyway. Ben Affleck basically said he's not remotely interested in directing anything for DC. Because Gunn was like trying to get him to direct a movie. And it's like... The reason I wanted to bring up that particular headline is because I mentioned in my last live stream that I think the jig is up with a lot of these creatives who, you know, like poor Jeff Loveness, right? Of Ant-Man Quantumania, who apparently is a really good guy and the smart guy to write the Avengers film. I mean, I'm just not seeing what his best buds are seeing, okay? I'm just not seeing it. But God love him, you know. Joe, Jeff, God love you. God love you, Jeff. That's my Biden right there. Jeff, God love you. You tried your best. You tried your best. Where am I? He tried his best to write Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Why is the Wasp in the title? She's not even hardly in the movie. And the question is, like, why are these actors like Michael Douglas and Michelle Pfeiffer and, you know, why is Sam Raimi getting dragged into Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness? why are they falling for it? Why are they getting dragged into these movies and then they get noted to death? And then, you've got Michael Douglas, this veteran, legendary actor, sticking his hands into goo in this movie. It's unbelievable. You have to see, no, don't see it. See it if you want to, but I'm saying rhetorically speaking, you have to see it. He's sticking his hands into these like jelly orifices to drive a ship. Look, if you sign on to be on a superhero film, my sympathy for you only goes so far because, you should sign on to it knowing you are in a superhero film and you should be willing to like wear a mask and just buy into all of it and do your best. That being said, there are even levels of indignity that I would be unwilling to accept. And Michael Douglas, he sinks to a level of indignity in Quantum Mania that is embarrassing. So why are these creatives always getting sucked into this? Well, I don't think they are anymore. I think Ben Affleck smells a rat. It's just a theory. I can't prove it. Maybe Ben Affleck is just, he's like, I'm just going to stay home and count my money. But no, I think Ben Affleck was serious about the Batman role. And I'll be honest, I really hated on Batfleck for a long time. I don't know why. I just didn't think he was right for it. He's kind of an annoying guy, frankly. I don't like any of his takes on anything. He's just one of those actors that's kind of obnoxious to me. All I can think of is Good Will Hunting. I hated that movie. Was he in Good Will Hunting? What was the one that him and Matt Damon were in? I don't know. It's whatever their claim to fame was. Anyway, I really hated the idea of Batfleck, but you know what? He was committed to that role, and he actually wound up turning his version of a sort of grizzled, jaded Batman into something that actually worked quite well and was starting to really click. I thought the Zack Snyder redo, the Snyder cut of the Justice League was actually pretty good. I mean, there were definitely elements of it that were still awful, but the final act of it is way better than the theatrical Justice League. I mean, way better. And I could tell that Ben Affleck was invested in this. And I think it kind of pisses him off, if I'm just guessing. I think it would piss him off that it's like, look, you put all this energy into these franchises. You put all this energy into these movies. And then they switch horses midstream. They throw out Zack Snyder. They put in Joss Whedon. He bungles the whole thing. They get rid of Joss Whedon. They bring in James Gunn. Now they want you directing. Now they're firing Henry Cavill. Now they're rebooting. It's like, why bother? Why is this worth your time? I mean, I'm not shedding any tears, for Hollywood actors or anything, but it is an investment of your life to film a movie. It is an especially if you're directing. I mean, those are 12 to 14 hour days for like 3 months at least. So if you're a serious director, so you really have no life while you're pouring your heart and soul into a film. Why are you going to do that when there's all this garbage about, they can't even decide which actors they're going to keep or fire. They can't decide if they're going to reboot or do the whole multiverse thing. They can't figure out whether the new Batman is the new Batman or not, or whether, Joaquin Phoenix's Joker is the real Joker or not. Fu Man Blue says, is the tight Rick and Morty guy? Tom says, you're still getting ads though. They're better than they were. The ads are better than they were. The ad blockers were. Did you get uBlock Origin? I did not. I'll have to work on that. We'll talk. Don't worry. Rick and Morty guy. I don't know if it's, I know nothing about Rick and Morty. I've seen like one episode, but I don't get what people see in that show. People rave about that show. People love that show. I feel like it's a nightmarish fever dream and I want nothing to do with it. I've seen it a couple times. There's something about it that I just hate, and I can't even slog through 10 minutes of it to figure. I just wanted to figure out what people see in it. That's why I watched it. I was like, I just want to see what people see in this, and I couldn't get through. I got through one episode, and I was like, I can't do this. So And for whatever reason, apparently, if you write an episode in Rick and Morty, you are apparently the gold standard in Hollywood for some reason. I can't figure that out. If you've got any theories in chat, please let me know, because I have no idea. Yeah. Boo Man Blue says that's Goodwill. Loved it. That was a long time ago, to be fair. I saw that movie. It has to have been more than 15 years ago that I saw Goodwill Hunting. So I can't be... that's how fuzzy my memory is on that. I'm like, was Ben Affleck actually in that? Yeah, because that was the one that I think didn't they co-write the script, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon? I feel like they wrote that movie. And that was kind of what put them on the map in the first place. Because they were like best buds coming up in the industry. So yeah, I feel like the jig is up with these movies. These actors, they don't want to do this anymore. It's a waste of their time. Let's find a new headline. This is kind of interesting. This might be a nothing burger, this headline. The Last of Us Season 2 director teases major changes from the Part 2 game. Now, what could this be? We all know what happens in the second game of The Last of Us. And that would be golf club plus Joel's face equals character change. Coming off a fairly beat-for-beat adaptation of PlayStation's The Last of Us in Season 1 of the HBO series sporting the same name, the series showrunner teased major changes coming to Season 2. Showrunners Craig Mazin and Neil... Siri. No. Down, Siri. Where was I? Showrunners Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann have been fairly adamant that they have no plans to tell any stories beyond adapting the games. And apparently very obscure supporting characters in those games and giving them full episodes. But that does not mean that they cannot make small changes within those stories to further strengthen what was already there. That means fans can expect the team to next tackle the events of The Last of Us Part 2, albeit with a few unexpected twists and turns along the way. So here's basically what Mazin said about Season 2. It will be different just as this season was different. Sometimes it'll be different radically, and sometimes it will be fairly different. Oh my God. The doublespeak. Yeah, this is why I really can't stand reading like traditional media. It's so difficult because it's like, I know this is just you. This is you saying words without saying anything. It won't be exactly like the game. It'll be the show that Neil and I want to make, but we are making it with Bella. Oh, that's 1 point in the Joel is dead column. Because, we're making it with Bella. That sounds like we're going that direction. I think there is still this anxiety, this constant drumbeat of anxiety. And all I can say to people is I have so much anxiety myself about doing a good job on this. If you're anxious about something, I'm probably anxious about it. He's kind of talking about fans being anxious about what he's going to do, which means we're talking about it and we're thinking about it. We will present things, but it will be different. I put that is a point in the Joel Lives column. We're like Caesar with the thumb up, thumb down. Interestingly enough, that thumbs up actually meant kill, and thumbs down meant don't kill. If you're curious about why, I'll tell you later. Well, historians aren't settled on that. Back to the article. So we got 1 point in the Joel dies column, and we have 1 point in the Joel lives column. Oh, it's not. Let's see. Sometimes it's a little out of context, but I'll do my best to fill in. Oh, it's not lost. I think we know what we're doing on this one. I'm not saying that in a snarky way. I'm saying that in a hopeful way. There are going to be things that are going to be different, and there are things that are going to be identical. There are things that are going to be added and enriched. There are some things that are going to be flipped. Ooh, that's a point in the Joel Lives column right there. So we're 2-1 right now. The goal remains exactly what it was for the first season, which is to deliver a show that makes fans happy. We've got an incredible returning cast. It's a daunting task, but Jesus, so is the first season. You can't make everyone happy, but we've made a lot of people happy, and that's our intention to do it again. I begrudgingly, I think I would put that in the Joel Lives column. So that's like 3-1, all right? And then we get to this piece. Anytime you talk about Abby, you start to excite certain corners of the internet, meaning toxic fans. All I can say is that Neil and I will be adapting. I love how they put that. Certain corners of the internet. You mean your audience? It's your audience. It's not certain corners of the internet. Everyone who is part of the audience is part of the audience. You don't say, well, there's this part, there's this corner of the audience, and there's that corner of the audience. No, everyone is in your audience. And maybe most of the audience likes what you do, or most of the audience doesn't like what you do. That's how fiction works. What is so hard for these people to understand? They hate criticism. They hate it. Well, to be fair, I mean, it's not like I enjoy it, but it's just part of the deal. Like, if you hate, like, can you be a comedian if your attitude is that heckler, well, there's this certain corner of the audience that, you know, they're just very unfortunately toxic. You know, it's like every comedian, you could never look at hecklers that way and be a successful comedian. If you are a successful comedian, you are an expert at dealing with hecklers. That's it. There's no other way to be a comedian. In fact, it's one of the, I know this because I've actually talked to people that teach comedy, and that's like one of the first things you teach to a new comedian is like, you know, that's how you deal with hecklers. Like, you get your heckler routine going. So returning to this article, anytime you talk about Abby, you start to excite certain corners of the internet. All I can say is that Neil and I will be adapting the story to television as best we see fit. It seems likely that main characters that are crucial to the storyline would be portrayed, but no, right now it's too early for me to commit to anything in print. Let's put it that way. That is like, that's 2 points in the Joel dies column for me. That's 2. So we're actually 3-3 now, because this is the crucial line here. Anytime you talk about Abby, who golf club Abby, you start to excite certain corners of the internet. Okay, for those that don't know, I'm going to spoil season 2 of The Last of Us. 3, 2, 1. Abby kills Joel in the second game. Just whacks him in the head with a golf club. It's hideous. It's awful. And it was completely uncalled for in a storytelling. It was, you know what it was? It was absolutely Game of Thrones syndrome. It was, Game of Thrones did it. Now we have to do it. It was so cool when Ned Stark died, because you thought that Sean Bean, everyone thought Sean Bean was going to be the hero of the story, and then he died. That's such good writing. And so that's what this is from. This is we're trying to out Game of Thrones, right? And as I have pointed out in previous streams, there is a reason for why George R. R. Martin writes the way he does. And in his case, it is a well-founded reason. But it does not work for every story. So that's point number 1. The fact that he is already setting up that certain corners, certain unpleasant, the Walmart shoppers of our audience, we know that they get excited. Excited, of course, being a euphemism for they dislike. They dislike the idea that you are going to just bludgeon to death this celebrated hero with a golf club in order to stick it to the patriarchy. So that's number 1. Number 2 is, all I can say is that Neil and I will be adapting the story to television as best we see fit. Well, Neil is the guy that wrote the first version in the first place, in which, and listen, here's the deal. In order for them to change this, to write this out of the second season, because if they have any sense, they will do this. They will write this out. And if I were them, to save a little face, I would write a scene that kind of mirrored that event, but went a different way. And so it sort of honors the game, but like splits off a new timeline, let's say. And that would, in their own mind, would allow them to save a little face. That's how I would do it. But here's what would be necessary for them to do that. It would be necessary for Mr. Neil Druckmann to admit, whether to himself or the world, doesn't really matter, but he would have to admit that he, as a creator, made a mistake. And if he signed off on a storyline that voluntarily, of course, he may have no choice based on a contract, but let's just assume he does have enough creative control to stop it. if he signs off on an absolute departure from his wonderful storyline, it would be him admitting he's wrong. And I just don't believe it's possible, because this is the same guy that got YouTubers copyright struck for even commenting on the events of Last of Us 2, and went after anyone who was exposing the absolute crap that was that plot, or that was that second game. So he could take his lumps. He could just admit, I made a big mistake. But he won't do that because his prior behavior doesn't really indicate he has any chance of that. So that's point number 2. I think that's point number 2 in the column. So Fu Man Blue says, I won't see it. And I was, what were we on? Were we on Superman? Let me know, Fu Man Blue. What is it you won't see? That's Goodwill. Okay, got that one. Oh, you're saying? Oh, yeah, he's saying Matt Damon and Ben Affleck supposedly ripped off Goodwill Hunting for someone. Let me tell you something. Okay, this is my honest thought. Every single person who has ever written just an Oscar-winning or just absolute famous screenplay, I guarantee you there is some sad sack in the world somewhere who claims it was ripped off. Guarantee it. I hear this. At writers group, I would hear this all the time. The little rumors about, oh, did you know that there was actually this other actor who wrote The Matrix and it was totally ripped off by the Wachowski brothers? Not to say that it doesn't happen. It certainly does happen. But my point is that, like, how easy is it to say, oh, that was my idea? Look, I've heard writers who have something of an overestimation of their own talent, let's say, being fearful of someone ripping off their idea. And it's like, nobody's going to rip off this idea, okay? But then there's like people who claim that like their idea was taken. And it's like, no, look, this is the way I see it. If you have a screenplay that you want to write and you don't write it, or you write it, but you don't get out there and pitch it and get in front of producers and work on your elevator pitch, if you don't pour your heart and soul into selling that thing, and someone else writes a very similar story and they do get it sold and make millions and millions of dollars, sorry, that's just how it works. That just is what it is. And it's not that I'm saying it's fair or unfair. It's just reality. So I don't know. I tend to be skeptical. Whenever someone says, they ripped off that screenplay. I mean, would it count if like Ben Affleck and Matt Damon were like having dinner with someone and they talked about some, like, oh, I have this idea about a screenplay about this guy who's, he's really brilliant, but he just got a lot of emotional damage, and and this professor takes an interest in him and really cultivates him into this great student and helps him get a breakthrough. And then Matt Damon is saying like, oh, that's a really good idea. You should write that. And like, I pull it out of the drawer every once in a while. I tinker with it. I don't know. Should it be that it's like a female professor and he falls in love with her? I can't really decide. And then Matt Damon's like, whatever. And then Matt Damon goes home and says like, that's kind of a cool idea. And then spends years working on an actual story and writing it and everything. Would that be stealing anything? I don't think that's stealing anything. It's not plagiarism is stealing. Plagiarism is I'm literally copying everything you wrote. So I just don't. Maybe they ripped it off. That's just my feeling on it. Oh my God, Joel getting to live, Fu Man Blue says. The tricky part is that letting him live changes everything afterward. Yeah, and I got no clue. I have no clue what happens after that. Well, okay, I take that back. I did watch Critical Drinker's review of the game, so I kind of have some sense of where it goes. The worst contribution to cinema for Marvel is the pretentious need to prevent story leaks. That was never a thing until these dumb interconnected universes. Yeah, part of that is, again, they have a need to suppress honest fan reaction. It's a bizarre pathology when you really think about it. It's like part of it is just corporate. It's just corporate crap, you know? When you are a company, everything is about positive brand image, and your goal is like you want to downplay things. But honestly, I feel like the entertainment industry works harder at this than any other industry. Think about if you run a chain of restaurants, right? And you get some kind of a bad Yelp review. It's like, are you really going to like, have you ever heard of like a restaurant suing a bad Yelp reviewer? I mean, maybe it happens, but my feeling is that almost every other business, whether it's pest control or retail stores or whatever, if people write you bad reviews, you just have to take it. You just have to take it, and you can reply and you can say, "Oh, I'm sorry you had a poor customer service experience. You know, give us a chance to make it right." But the reality is, it's much easier for people to complain, and much more people are much more motivated, frankly, to complain than leave a good review. Why is it that the entertainment industry is the only industry where they feel entitled to go and freaking attack people? Just be like, "How dare you not like our movie, you racist?" You know, it's my salty cracker impression right there. It's like, "Well, the racists. Oh no, the racists." Watch some Salty Cracker, by the way. Hat tip Salty Cracker. He's great. Always good for a laugh. Tom says, if their goal is to make fans happy, that's a point for Joel Lives. You would think, Tom. But they don't live in our reality. These people don't live in that reality. They think making fans happy is making the right fans happy. They are not interested in making certain corners of the internet happy. They are not interested in making their flyover fans happy. Right? They don't want. What they want is the people they agree with politically to be happy. That's what they think of it this way. What was you just knew when that Bill and Frank episode came out. I mean, the minute they kiss at the piano, I'm like, oh shit, here we go. We're going on another pack your bags. We're going on you're all a bunch of homophobes guilt trip. That's basically what we're in for with this, right? And what's interesting about it is, as I have said many times, it's a very well-written episode, and it's actually a really great life story, as I like to put it. But that's not the point. The point is, the minute anyone did not like that episode, what were they? They're homophobes. And did they care? No, because once they could write off any objection to that episode as being homophobic, they could safely disregard the happiness, let's say, of any of those fans. They could, okay, good. They've self-sorted. That's how they look at it. Those fans have self-sorted. They've revealed themselves to be the people we don't want those people in the audience. That's ew, gross. They probably wear those red hats. They shop at Walmart. Ugh, ew, gross. So that's why this line about we want to make fans happy, that doesn't go in the Joel Lives column for me, because they only care about making their psycho weirdo, pronouns and bio fans happy. That Joel gets the golf club treatment because that's what the patriarchy deserves. If those fans are happy, then yes, then they will have accomplished their goals. So that being said, Neil Druckmann 100%, I think, is in that category of how he looks at things. Craig Mazin, maybe. I'm jury's a bit out, and that's only because of Chernobyl, because Chernobyl was so good. Chernobyl, by the way, is one of the most scathing indictments of communism I've seen. I mean, that was one past the goalie. It's one of the most scathing indictments of communism I've ever seen. And I can't believe it was made in the modern era on HBO. And really, I mean this sincerely, the word communism should have the exact same response as the word, Yahtzeeism, if you know what I'm saying, because they're one and the same. They have different enemies, but they're one and the same. They're the exact same mentality. And so and communism is guilty of millions and millions of dead in multiple countries across multiple wars throughout 100 years of history. So that being said, communism is much more in vogue than fascism. And so it's surprising to me that there was a show that was so accurate about why communism is such a failure in terms of, frankly, it's just one party rule. It's really also a study in why autocracy is such a failure. So Chernobyl, I recommend that show. Watch Chernobyl. It's an excellent show. And Craig Mazin was part of that. So that's why I struggle. I'm not going to write Mazin off as a woke tard just yet. But he certainly, look, leaving aside any of my own political takes of any kind, this was a boring show, The Last of Us. It was absolutely, you know what it was like? It was like Walking Dead at its most uneven. If they're like, whatever season of Walking Dead was kind of the most uneven, least interesting for you, if you're a Walking Dead fan, that is what The Last of Us was to me. It was the farm in season 2. And they talk about how, okay, season 1 was this great journey across America. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Where does he have that quote in here? I could have swore I read that quote about knowing where the story goes. It feels like Mazin and Druckmann will keep nearly every beat, and whatever changes are made will likely flesh out whatever was already there. The Last of Us video game series star Troy Baker recently opined that these changes in the first season made him realize this is a much bigger story than we originally conceived. Yeah, somewhere in here, there was some point about, I'm not going to read through the whole thing for that, but I will just say this was not the epic journey across the post-apocalyptic American hellscape. You had 2 complete departures. You had several boring episodes. There you go. Fu Man Blue says, that's why you get these articles full of doublespeak. Then yeah, right, because they don't want the fans, they don't want the honest opinion about these shows to be heard. Then the expectation subversion games began. Druckmann said at some point that he was willing to change anything from the game. Well, that's good. Maybe. Look, if he's got any sense, if he's got a lick of sense, he will not go the golf club route. He just won't do it. Good Salty impression. I try. No, Salty is incredible. He has this way of saying things that just, it breaks me up. If I need a good laugh anytime. Oh my God, this. That's like my favorite. No, not that one yet. Okay, we'll do this one. Any Dragon Age fans out there? Mass Effect, BioWare? Okay. I love the original Dragon Age Origins. And this is kind of an interesting idea. Dragon Age Origins lead writer proposes a remaster. Feels EA never understood the stories. Dragon Age Origins lead writer has sparked discussion over whether the game should be remastered and how EA treated the series. So, make sure I'm on the right overlay here. Good. Looking good. This game was on Xbox 360. It is an original fantasy world with ogres and kind of an orc-like race called the Darkspawn. And it's a high fantasy world. And I loved it. I loved this game. And you got to you create your character, which is my favorite kind of game. You create your character. You romance your companions. You lead this you have all these dialogue choices. You have to make moral decisions. It was excellent. And it had a really good system for actually doing like fantasy combat. I thought it very much felt like a Dungeons and Dragons. Well, essentially that's what they were doing. Basically, BioWare they had made some Dungeons and Dragons games in the past, like Baldur's Gate, for example, but they kind of wanted to do their own Dungeons and Dragons, and so they created this world. And it's a pretty damn good world. And it would make for a great film. And if you adapted it, you would adapt a serious, gritty, dark fantasy world. This is a dark fantasy world, which is one thing I really like about it, too. There's lots of creepy stuff in it, like cults that practice blood magic and demon possession. So there's fun stuff in this. And so, amid numerous remakes and remasters, Dragon Age Origins lead writer David Gator threw his proposal into the ring. If we're on a kick remastering games from the aughts, what about Dragon Age Origins? Its graphics were behind the curve even at the time of release. Can you imagine it with brand new PS5 era bells and whistles? See, he got a reply from like a fan who said, people that put the smiley face with the mask on it. There are just, look, your choice. Everyone is entitled to their choice of face wear, but I will just say, we got to let this go someday. We got to let this go. Someday, we have to move on, people. Anyway, dude, I don't know if that game could carry any more bells and whistles. It was already a double-wide kitchen bathtub of systems and content. Well, I absolutely agree with this commenter. That game is I don't care about the graphics. I really don't. It's perfection. That game is absolute perfection. I loved it. I loved the ending. I love the storylines. I love all the... You had 6 different character possibilities to start with their own unique stories. It was... And it had the right mood. It had this dark, sinister mood to it. But there were also these moments of like soaring, like heroism and, legendary heroes about it. And I love the trailer. The trailer when it came out is what sold me the game because I had just finished Mass Effect and I saw that it was by EA and I saw that first trailer. I was like, I got to play this game. And then David Gator says, even Inquisition level graphics would be great. Look, all I want is for Morgan to not have the shoulders of a linebacker and for the sex scenes to not look like someone bashing marionettes together and shouting, now kiss. I'm with Gator on this, but Gator, I'm sorry to tell you, man, you might be from a bygone era. We'll be lucky if they don't go and edit out all that stuff from the... By the way, can I just point something out here? The woke have this in common with Fox News. They don't like they do not like sexualization of video game characters. Isn't that a funny thing for those two groups to agree on? It was actually, who was it? It was a Fox News host. This is way back in I want to say 2012-ish. No, it's probably earlier than that. It's probably like 2010 maybe. And Mass Effect has a romance scene in it. It's a, space opera video game, right? And yes, there's kind of like very mild nudity. It's not even like a big deal. Like there's not, I could name 10 PG-13 movies that are more risque than this. And one of the major Fox News hosts that was, kind of always on the warpath back in those days, she did a piece about sex and video games. Oh, this is demonic. This is terrible. There's so much, all this sex and all these video games. Mass Effect is rated M for mature, by the way. If your kid is playing it, he's not supposed to be playing it. Like, video games have ratings. It's the same deal. Don't take your kid to a rated R movie. Don't buy your kid a rated M game. So it's not like the game was not aimed at children, right? And it's all the sex in a video game. What are we going to do? And so this was the Fox News take on it in 2010, okay? And it pissed me off. It just pissed me off. I'm like, oh my God, here we go. We're on the old holy roller warpath about a video game. Meanwhile, you can have as much sex and violence as you want in movies and TV shows, and that's totally fine. And so then now I have to hear from all the woke tards that Miranda's ass is just too heavenly in Mass Effect 2, and there's this angle on her ass that we've got to take out now. And it's like, wow, you should go back in time and you should join Fox News. You should be part of their panel, just dissecting how offensive sex in video games is. So really, you deserve each other, both of you, is kind of my feeling on that. So yes, I agree with Mr. Gator. I don't know if this can be made now. Gator's a pretty cool name. I wish my last name were Gator. No, I don't. Another commenter, so he said, okay, this is a reply. Okay, so another commenter said, by the way, Origin still works on modern PCs with a few fixes from 15-year-old forums. I tried to launch Jade Empire yesterday, and I could not because of all the DLL issues. Is that the wrong? I'm not I don't get into the nuts and bolts. Even before discussing remakes, it would be nice to count on basic support to make sure you can run the games. And you know what? The complaining, bitchy, whiny fan in me does kind of agree with this guy. But then Gator's reply is pretty good because he says, I guess it's a question for the publisher, although one has to wonder how long they're expected to continue to support an old game. That's fair. That is fair. But I will counter with this, sir. I will counter with this. Back in the days of cartridges, you know, you got your Super Nintendo game, you plugged it into the console, it was done. It was a done game. It was a finished product. There were no DLCs. There were no updates. There was no 10 hours of downloading the damn thing. It was you plugged it in and you started playing, and it worked. And that was the deal. And what you bought is what you bought. So if video game companies are willing to return to that model of doing things, then I would take your point here. But it's like, but no, you launch these games, they're always half-baked, they've got all these problems, and then, you know, you can't even, like, you have problems with matchmaking, you can't even get into you can't even get into an online match. And so you want to complain. You want to complain when we gamers who are playing your game for longer than, I don't know, a year, still would like the game to work. We would still like the game to function. And I'll tell you something. You can have a Super Nintendo that is 30 years old, has been dropped down the stairs, that I swear to God, a friend of mine, his Super Nintendo, half of the casing was missing and the circuitry was exposed and it was caked with dust. Not even like, you couldn't hardly see the circuits. There was so much dust in the thing. And it purred like a kitten. It played every game flawlessly. So I don't want to hear this crap about, well, how long are we supposed to support a game? Like for frickin' ever? For 2 years? 3? It's like, how about this? I buy your game, it works on day 1 and it works on day 1,000. Like, how about it works on day 10,000? Like my old Super Mario World still works in a broken down Super NES that's been dropped down the stairs with exposed dusty circuits. That would be a fair deal. That would be a fair social contract, sir. And that is my feeling on that. King Tiberius, welcome. You're right. King Tiberius. Oh, special mention. King Tiberius says, that Fox News host sounds like Gretchen Carlson. You know what? You're exactly, it was her. 100%. You nailed it. And it's like, there's no doubt in my mind, that's exactly who it was. It was Gretchen Carlson. In fact, you could dig up, you could go on YouTube and dig up the old clip, and she shows the shocking footage. It's Liara. It's Liara having sex with Shepard in Mass Effect. And it's like a little tasteful, artistic side ass action. It's like you're seeing the side shot. You're just seeing a little butt crack, a little blue alien butt crack. Come on, we get 10 hours of that in Avatar, and nobody complains about all the blue butt crack in Avatar. We get one little sliver. Us nerds, in our video game, we get one little sliver. Like, oh, I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite Asari to bang. And like we get one little bone thrown at us. Literally, giggity. And we have to listen to Gretchen Carlson get all precious about it on Fox News and talk about how America's going to hell in a handbasket. So, yes, that's why I'm a libertarian, because I really, I don't really have a home on either side of that fight. I really don't. I am a free expression absolutist, for better or worse. So, Gretchen Carlson. I'd forgotten about that. Oh, man. Wait till... It's a good thing she never saw Dragon Age, because she'd have really gone into orbit over that. What else did Gator say? Based on the replies and my Twitter friends in general, this would sell like hotcakes. It would. Gator says, I suspect EA would only do it if they thought it would sell like gold-plated hotcakes. They've never really gotten Dragon Age or understood why it sold better than Mass Effect, was my impression. And I think he's 100% right about this. EA, to the extent that Dragon Age and Mass Effect were a success, it was in spite of EA. Because the first game was perfect. It was 40 hours of amazing story-driven fantasy adventuring. It was a great story. It was a lot of clever, smart world building. And then they were so excited about counting up all their money, beautiful money. And so they rushed Dragon Age 2, and it basically resulted in a game that was linear, that did not have the same, it didn't have near, it had maybe a tenth the size of the world. And I actually like Dragon Age 2 quite a bit, but it was definitely not the same thing. And it was definitely a very inferior game, and they just didn't get it. And then Dragon Age Inquisition was pretty glorious. I really enjoyed it, but it suffered from way too much world. It was too much, as Bilbo would have it. It was like, butter scraped over too much bread is what Dragon Age Inquisition was. It was too much bread, not enough butter. And there wasn't enough story to play. And so at a certain point, those open world environments in Dragon Age Origin beat me into submission. Every time I pick that game up to play it, I'll play it for about 50, 60 hours, which in that game, there is easily 200 hours of gameplay in it. Like 200. If you did every single fetch quest in that game, it's 200 hours. It's ridiculous. So I get this wild hair that I'm gonna literally explore every single corner of Dragon Age Inquisitions. I'm gonna do every single side quest. I'm gonna do every single thing. I'm gonna kill every dragon. And you know what happens? I get in about 60 hours and I haven't even finished the main game, and I'm like, I can't take any more of this. I'd rather play Skyrim. Skyrim is a better model for that. If that's what you're gonna do, that's a better way to do it. So I hope I have not bored the audience to tears with my departure into the world of RPG games. But let me just close. Let's close with something fun, shall we? Are you ready for this story? Try this headline. Let me make sure everything's framed. Okay. Yes, try this headline. Gwyneth Paltrow uses ozone enema. $200 million rich Marvel star roasted for admitting she inserts ozone into her, forgive me here, asshole for rectal ozone therapy. This is from Fandom Wire. And I saw this headline. Apropos of nothing, I said, this is going in my stack of stuff for today. Because someone needs to explain this to me. Our society has gone too far. In our quest for eternal youth, we have gone too far, my dear sailors and starnauts. This is the other thing I love about these. Look, that was the end of the story. There's nothing more to read here, right? This is the whole point of the story, is this headline. I clicked on it. I have served my purpose as a consumer of modern news. I have served my purpose. I have laughed. I've had a good time. It's time to move on. But because apparently, like ostensibly, this is a news page, there must be other stuff. Like they could just put that Latin filler in here, the lorem ipsum, whatever, and just fill it up with Latin, and it would serve its purpose. But because we have to pretend that this is journalism, there's more to the story, I guess. So I'll just skip the... Gwyneth Paltrow is a well-known American actress who has received various accolades, which include the prestigious Academy Award. Is that prestigious anymore? Like, does anyone care? Who even cares? No, that's not... I got news for you. All of her awards is not why I clicked on this article. So she was on a podcast, apparently, and, I have sympathy for this. Podcasts are very long. Live streams are very long. Who knows what you might tell the world about yourself? But she says, I'm really embarrassing myself right here. I love an IV. I'm an early IV adopter. They're quite hard to find, and those make me feel so good. I usually eat something about 12. In the morning, I'll have things that won't spike my blood sugar, so I have coffee. I really like soup for lunch. Now, that tells me she's weird. That is freaking weird. Soup is not a meal. I am with, I'm with old El Rushbo on this one. Soup is not a meal. Soup is like an appetizer. It's like something do you want a soup or a salad? It's not what you're actually going to eat this evening. That's what it is. Do you feel full after soup? Soup is a meal when you're sick. That's the only time soup is a meal. Soup is when you're so old and you have no teeth and all you can do is sip on things. Like yes, in that case, soup is an appropriate meal. I have bone, and it's even worse. I forgot the second part. I have bone broth for lunch a lot of days. That probably is more healthy. I know bone broth is healthy, but that's not a meal. But I guess, she stays fit, I suppose. I try to do 1 hour of movement, so I'll go for a walk, or I'll do Pilates, or I'll do my Tracy Anderson workouts. It's really important for me to support my detox. 1 hour of movement. This is what we've come to in our modern civilization, right? 1 hour of movement. I should move today. In fact, I shouldn't just move. I should move for a full hour. We have it way too good on this planet these days. This is why we're so insane. This is really what the woke mind virus is a result of. We have way too much time on our hands. Think of the mountains of just the mountains of work that have been invested in solving the problem of things like microaggressions and proper, use of pronouns for asexual people. I mean, if everything seems like it's a level of insanity that's incomprehensible, well, this is why, because we consider 1 hour of movement is what we must, that's a thing to aspire to in our modern society. That's a thing to aspire. I aspire to 1 hour of movement. I barely move. This is not the right thing for me to do if this is my aspiration. But, we all have to have dreams, But I don't want to bury the lead here. She went on to say, the Iron Man actress shared that she used ozone therapy rectally. Rectal ozone therapy induces the medical grade ozone gas directly into the colon via the rectum of an individual. I have used ozone therapy rectally. It's pretty weird, but it's been really helpful. With what? What is this helpful with? But then I had to go and read the rest of it. I know. I'm just a glutton for punishment. Rectal ozone therapy is a controversial medical procedure as the therapy is believed to help in treating cancer, arthritis, viral diseases such as HIV and SARS, and much more. Is this not the weirdest thing you've ever heard? What is going on here? What is happening? They say it's the Large Hadron Collider. Isn't that the conspiracy theory? Okay, I'm going to get to the comments soon, but I want to grab King Tiberius says that, LOL, Hollyweird. Oh, you're so right about that, Mr. Tiberius. I'm sorry, King Tiberius, Your Majesty. Now I'm worried about my a-hole. What if it needs therapy too? I got to get some ozone up in me stat. You laugh, but if you heard that it would cure a hangover in like 5 seconds, that is if you're a drinker, you'd probably consider it. People that complain about microaggressions have never been subject to macroaggression. Exactly. This is exactly my point. Do you think that, okay, one example, I was watching Graham Nolan's Netflix series, Ancient Apocalypse, and he's talking about there's this network, great show, by the way, definitely watch it. There's this network of, it's basically an underground city. It's a network of tunnels and underground dwellings that's all interconnected, and it's like below the desert in like the modern day Middle East. I want to say it's like in the realm of like Turkey or Syria. I forget where it is, but it's like, and they just talked about how there was this ancient one theory, the current like accepted conventional theory of why this underground city exists. Why does it exist? Well, they think that they built it to hide from the neighboring civilization. I don't know if they said it was like Sumerians or what. I'm totally messing up all the geography here. But the point is that like the predominant theory is that this invading army was famous for like skinning people alive and just doing all this terrible shit to them. And so they were so terrified of them that they dug these interconnected tunnels. And Graham Nolan doesn't believe this theory. He thinks there's all these reasons why it doesn't work. But the point is, when I'm watching this, I thought about that. Like, you ever have something really sink in and you're like, God, that was life. That was life for like 99% of our existence on this planet. It was like, oh, if that neighboring civilization comes this way, I'm probably going to watch everyone I've ever loved be skinned alive and brutalized and tortured to death and sold into slavery and or some combination of all of those things. So that might be what you would call a macroaggression. And so the fact that we're so concerned with microaggressions indeed suggests we have it a little too easy. As Bane put it in The Dark Knight Rises, victory has defeated you. That was more of a Picard impression, but victory has defeated you. Oh, that's closer. So yeah, Hollyweird definitely, of all the Hollyweird that's out there, Gwyneth Paltrow is, she truly fits that definition because she has this weird cosmetic line called Goop. And she got into all this hot water because apparently she was making all these crazy outlandish claims, product claims about what it could do. And it was, yeah, she's definitely an odd duck. She is an odd duck. So what did Fu Man Blue? He had something I didn't want to miss. He said Dragon Age 1 is so good. And you're so right about that. Dragon Age 1, why couldn't they just do that 3 more times, right? What is it? What is it with all of these? It's like the more success that a video game or a movie franchise has, the more determined the creatives are to reinvent it. And it's like, why are you reinventing something that was brilliant? Why are you reinventing something? You add to it, maybe refine it, like refine its existing functionality. I will say one problem Dragon Age suffered from was that the ending was so varied depending on your choices. It did kind of write them into a corner because literally your character can wind up the king or he can wind up dead at the end of that story. And like all the history of the whole world changes as a result. So you couldn't really have your character from the first game import to the second game because it was just too complicated. So what they instead did was they said you could import the choices that your character made into your next character. And that was part of their problem, was they were a little bit too good. So Fu Man Blue said, I never thought much about what the guy smashing my face with his fist was saying while he did it. Yeah. That's hard to think. What is it Mike Tyson said? Every man has a plan until he gets punched in the face. Fu Man Blue says, yeah, that cave was amazing. It really was in that show, Graham Nolan's Ancient Apocalypse. Really fascinating. I kind of watched it on Nerdrotic's recommendation. He's super into it. And, I usually don't watch. I really hate Ancient Aliens. I really do. I'm not an Ancient Aliens guy. It annoys me. It annoys me when we attribute everything that we can't in our modern times figure out. Things we can't figure out. How did they move those blocks? I can't figure it out. Well, we are the smartest generation, so that means it was aliens. And that's why it annoys me, because it's like people don't seem to realize that ancient civilizations were brilliant. Like Egyptians were brilliant engineers. Romans were incredible engineers. And a lot of what they engineered, they stole from other civilizations like Carthage. So, that's part of their brilliance, though. Rome did not conquer a country and then just like destroy it, like wipe out all of its inhabitants and discard all of its culture, as a lot of invading cultures often would do. Rome would integrate anything useful that culture had. They would integrate it into their society, and they would assimilate that culture into their society. And they would, once you were conquered by the Romans, you essentially, you may not become like a Roman in terms of the level of citizenship, but you effectively, over time, your people would become Romans, basically. And so they adopted all these incredible technologies, and they had amazing things that they could build. And think about this for a second. The Roman aqueducts were ancient while Rome was still an empire. Like I want to say it was like probably the early 100s or 200s AD, there was a Roman historian in the Roman Empire who was writing the history and investigating the history of the aqueducts, which in his time were already like 600 years old. Think about that for a second. So yeah, it's not Ancient Aliens. So I kind of thought I was in for something a little bit like that with the Graham Nolan thing. But then when I watched it, his theories are actually super fascinating. And I have to admit, I'm very skeptical, obviously. He's building a case, but I don't think he's proven anything. But he has certainly proven to me that this is worth looking into. Like, I would say what makes me irritated by the historian's response to Graham Nolan is that I think the truly scientific mentality to have would be, okay, he's pointed out some interesting questions and it's worth looking into. And if they had that attitude, and if they said, look, it's worth looking into, but his claims are unlikely. His claims are unlikely, but we'll look into it. But and we'll see what we can confirm. We're interested to try out some new hypotheses. But we're not hopeful. We're pretty certain that, the evidence shows otherwise. If that was the attitude of the archaeological community, that's fair. I beg, that's totally fair, But no, what is their attitude? Their attitude is, he's a white supremacist. Oh no, another salty cracker impression. Oh my God, the white supremacist. He's contradicting archaeology. And so that's their reaction. Their reaction is, we want this pulled from Netflix. Well, that tells me that you're not trustworthy. That tells me that you have something to hide, or that you're so up your own asshole that really I shouldn't be listening to you, because you're arrogant and you're dismissive. And I don't care. I don't care how outlandish Graham, because I have no doubt that what did I call him? Did I misname him? Graham Hancock. Did I say Graham Nolan? Did I confuse him? Sorry, sometimes I don't hear myself. Graham Hancock. Yes, I'm sorry. I may have said the wrong name. If I did, Graham Hancock is who I'm talking about, of Ancient Apocalypse. Graham Nolan is the great, I believe he is the comic book artist. Yes. And he is he Ghosts of Matacumbe? I believe he is. He was the artist who drew Bane. I don't know comic book lore like some of actual comic book collectors. So anyway, I confused Graham Nolan, I think, with Graham Hancock. I'm talking about Graham Hancock. Graham Hancock is just pointing out possibilities, and anyone who is willing to investigate evidence, this idea that it's an argument from authority to say that an archaeologist must have the pedigree. You must have the pedigree. You must be Oxford educated. It's like, no, any human being with the powers of observation can apply the scientific method. That's why people who talk about science with the capital S are idiots. They say, oh, you have to follow the science. Oh, you're a science denier. It's like, dude, science is founded on denial, idiot. Science is built on denial. It's called skepticism. It's called doubting everything. It's the whole foundational principle. If you have a set of phenomena and you believe there is an explanation that fits the facts, it is incumbent upon you to prove it. That's what the scientific method is. And technically, anyone can apply the scientific method. It's simply a tool of investigation. And so what is Graham Hancock doing? He's going around and he's looking at the evidence and he's saying, I have a different hypothesis, and I think that these facts support that hypothesis. So why not give him the floor? Why not let him make the case and let his peers review his claims? Not in this dismissive, pull him off a Netflix way, but in an open way, and say, okay, well, let's review your claims. Let's counter with our evidence. I would enjoy, by the way, hearing that argument. I would like to hear that argument. That's how I learn. I learn by listening to people debate how things happened. Like, how did this actually occur? Like, it's very interesting, and so that's actually the pathway to real knowledge, is to hear people bring up the evidence and have an open discussion about it. And the fact that they won't do that with Graham Hancock suggests to me that they're useless. The modern archaeologists who have that attitude are useless to me. So, yeah, fuck off. You're useless to me. You have nothing more to contribute here. So, anyway, Gwyneth Paltrow used an ozone in what I would consider a very unrecommended fashion. You know what, though? I have to say, they say, well, rectal ozone therapy is not FDA approved. Oh, no shit. That's like, it's not FDA approved. But that being said, look, right to try. I'm a big believer. Everyone has the right to try. But I will tell you, some of the insane lengths people will go to survive, to not have a hangover, it's insane. Like there are two products that if you invented either one of these products, you would be a billionaire overnight. For your family would be set forever. You'd be the richest man in the world if you could invent one of these two things. Are you ready? The cure for male baldness and the cure for the hangover. If you can invent either one of those two things, you are going to be a very, very wealthy individual. Nobody's invented that because it doesn't exist. The universe doesn't want us to have the cure for those things. You can't cheat certain things. There is a cost, right? So no mortals. The proper role for a mortal is to suffer a hangover when you have too much fun with mind-altering substances. So yeah, Foodman Blue says Nolan is the comic book artist. Yeah, he's amazing. Nolan and Hancock. Graham Nolan. Let me one last thing here. I just have to double check because he is so shadow banned. I believe it's Graham Nolan did the Ghosts. I really want this too. I'm gonna Ghosts of Matt. He picked a title that's really hard to spell. Which, just the self-published novelist in me is like, I would never pick a title for my book that was that hard to spell. It's hard enough when I say Blood and Oak. My book is called Blood and Oak. And they're like, in fact, apropos of nothing, there it is, Blood and Oak. I say, and people sometimes say Blood of Oak. And I'm like, no, Blood and Oak. Blood and Oak. So imagine Ghosts of Matacumbe Key. That's even harder. Matacumbe, I think it's pronounced. It's a cool name. I love the name. It's just, you can't pronounce the thing. Or you can't spell it, I mean. Yes, by Graham Nolan. So yes, this is, in fact, I don't want to be stingy here. This is, oops, wrong one. There we go. This looks great. So he's doing this whole monster verse. This is his own self-published comic book. I am so and Indiegogo has shadow banned this because it's very, it's inappropriate to show women that have a feminine figure. That's inappropriate. And I see a man with a gun and he has an angry face. That's inappropriate. No, inappropriate. So yes, he's shadow banned. But I have got to get me some of this comic book. I love superheroes. I really do. But this is a great comic books are a great medium for this kind of a story. An expansive ghost universe, monsters, just this classic take on it, this pulp fiction dime novel take on it. I love it, so I'm all for it. All right, Sailors of Starnuts, we have gone for 2 hours and a half. I do appreciate Fu Man Blue, King Tiberius, Tom, and all you other sailors and starnuts out there. Thank you for joining me for an evening. My plan is to do this every Thursday night and every Sunday night. And just keep it going. I know I need some things. I need to fix the background. I know the background is shit. I know it's terrible. I'm working on it. Okay. The background, we need some kind of an intro. We need lights. We need better lighting. We got all kinds of things to work on. So I do one thing at a time. You know, I figured out shorts this week. So I'm doing shorts now. And you know what's funny? I didn't want to do shorts because I thought, oh, shorts. I'm not a TikTok guy. I don't like that stuff. But actually, I did the shorts. I kind of like it. I kind of enjoy making them. But, you know, 12-minute, 8 to 15-minute videos, that's still my main thing. That's my funnest thing to do. But the shorts are kind of fun. It's like, I kind of clip together like a little 1-minute story. Fu Man Blue says, okay, I missed a few. I was watching him collab with some other guys on a stream last night, and they were talking about a lot of folks that are shadow banned. Yeah, so I'm working on eventually launching a campaign for my next fictional work, and I will not be doing Indiegogo or Kickstarter. I don't trust them at all. And he said, that's just shocking to me. The audacity infuriates me. Good night, Captain. Good night, Fu Man Blue. Stay safe out there. I'm just kidding. I hate that. Stay safe. Look, whatever. I'm a man of danger. I'm a man of action. My life isn't going to be safe. There's no way. I'm on the internet. Come on. So what I would say is, I salute you, sir. He says, I don't care about your background, bro. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. Doing the best I can. All right. Well, sailors and starnauts, this is Swords and Starships. I am Captain Garrett, and this has been the Captain's Cast. And so until next time, I will see you